Zhang Henshui's The Golden Fen Family Chapter 32. A woman makes her husband smile and become evil, but he eventually turns into a crane. The younger brother conceals the truth and roars like a lion. Huiqing had just entered the door, and Hesun held her hand and said, "Isn't it cold?" Huiqing threw her hand down, and said, "What do you mean by moving your hands and feet?" Hesun said, "I see you are wearing one. I'm afraid you'll be cold if I touch your hand." Huiqing said, "I know whether it's cold or not. Who wants you to pretend to be so?" Hesun said with a smile, "I really can't say a nice word, and this can be considered hypocritical. We need to talk about this while we have had enough sleep. Don't you advocate equality between men and women? In any case, in this principle of equality between men and women, we cannot. It is said that a woman should be an exception to her husband." Huiqing said with a smile, It's hard to say. Maybe there are exceptions." Hesun said, "No need to mention it. With your tone, you can just say it first. How can I be treated as an equal by a weak nation?" Huiqing asked him to go alone, fell on the bed, turned sideways, and went to sleep without saying a word. Hesun saw that she was sleeping on her side without a quilt, so he pulled away the autumn quilt on the bed and covered her half of the body. Huiqing turned over and lifted the quilt aside. Hesun said, "You are so unreasonable. I covered you well, but you were angry, so I let you go to cool down and ignore your own business." After saying that, he took a Hu crepe jacket from the hanger. He put on his coat, closed the door with a plop, and walked out. When Huiqing was pretending to sleep, he turned around and saw Hesun wearing long clothes and ignored him. What did he think? Later, Hesun opened the door and went out. Huiqing turned over and climbed up. He said to the window, "Go as quickly as possible. The further away, the better. You ran out in the middle of the night. Do you have the nerve to come back?" Hesun was in the yard. He could hear clearly, but he just kept silent and lowered his head to go out. When he got outside, he stood outside Yanxi's house and knocked on the door. Yanxi asked who it was. Hesun said, "It's me. Open the door and let me in." Yanxi said, "It's almost midnight. If you need anything, come and get it early tomorrow morning." Hesun said, "Since I want you to open the door, of course I have something to come in. Please open it." He kept tapping his hands. Yanxi couldn't be urged, so she had to get up and open the door. Under the electric light, I saw Hesun wearing a long coat. Only 2 of the 6 buttons were buttoned, and the big skirt was open, fluttering in the wind. Because he let him in, he asked, "What do you want? And you are rushing here in such a vigorous manner." Hesun said, "I don't want anything. Your second sister-in-law keeps troubling me. I can't sleep at night. I want to sleep outside." One night, Yanxi smiled and said, No, I can sleep well alone. I don't agree with adding another person out of thin air." Hesun said, "Why can't 2 people sleep in such a big bed?" She said, "If you want to make a fuss, there's still daylight. If you come to make noise with others in the middle of the night, isn't this a fire at the city gate, which will affect the fish in the pond?" Hesun said, "I just don't want to make noise with her at night, otherwise, I would still don't let me sleep. If you don't want me to sleep, just give me the blanket, and I'll sleep on this sofa." Yanxi said, "I won't let you sleep tomorrow." Got it, saying that we are colluding together, and then saying that your brothers are not good people. Not to mention that, Hesun pulled the Russian blanket folded by Yanxi's bedside. There were 2 purple satin duck-down cushions on the sofa chair. They folded them together and used them as pillows. She lay down on the sofa chair, pulled off the blanket, covered it from bottom to top, and said, "Hey, it's comfortable." Yanxi smiled. He said, "How can a blanket be made? It's frozen." Carefully, "You'd better come to my bed to sleep." Hesun turned over and said, "There is a fire at our city gate. Why do you want to harm Qingqiu?" Yanxi said, "Yes, just look. It's none of my business to be cold." So the 2 of them went to sleep. Early the next morning, Jin Rong came in to clean up the house. When he saw Hesun lying on the sofa, he asked, "Why is the second master sleeping here?" Hesun was already awake. Hearing this, he turned over and sat up, asked, "What time is it?" Jin Rong said, "It's early. It's not even 8 o'clock yet." Hesun said, "Go to my place and ask Mali to bring the toothbrush, tooth powder, and my mantle and hat. Come on." After hearing this, Jin Rong knew that he was angry with the second mistress again. How could he have the courage to get something? When I heard about it, I just smiled at Heesun. Heesun said, go get it. Why are you laughing? Jin Rong said, it's so early. No one in the upper room has gotten up. How can we get it? Heesun said, Ma Li got up earlier than you. Let's go. Jin Rong just smiled but refused to go. Heesun said, why don't you go? You are Qi's man. Do I have to keep you still under my command? Yanxi was awakened by his voice. Yin turned over and sat up and said with a smile, I'm not defending him. Second brother himself doesn't dare to go in. Who is he? Does he dare to go in? Heesun felt a little embarrassed after hearing Yanxi's words. Yin said, why don't I dare to go in? I'm afraid I'll make a noise when I get up early in the morning, which will make it difficult for others to sleep. After saying that, he put on his clothes and walked inside. As soon as she walked under the corridor door, she saw Qia Zhongpeng with a lot of hair and a bunch of white orchids coming from the west courtyard. Heesun waved to her and said with a smile, come here, I have something to ask you. You. Qingqiu hid the bunch of flowers behind her back and said with a smile, there are a number of flowers. I can't take them if I want. Heesun said with a smile, you are so stingy, I don't want to steal your flowers. I want you to go in and get something for me. Qingqiu said, what are you going to get? Let me bring the flowers back to you. Heesun said, why bother going to my room? Go and tell Ma Li to bring my tooth powder and toothbrush, as well as my hat and jacket. Qingqiu sniffed the white orchids and smiled at Heesun. Yin said, are you and your wife at odds again? Heesun laughed and said, hey, this thing is becoming more and more unruly. He just told me and my wife. Qingqiu said with a smile, this is not a bad word. Otherwise, go and get it yourself. I won't go, so don't let the second young mistress scold me. After saying that, he turned around and left. Heesun held her back and said with a smile, I don't blame you, isn't it? Qingqiu said, I'm going to take it. How about the second young mistress not giving it to me? Heesun said, no, just give me an answer. Just go, and I'll wait for you at Master Qi's house. Qingqiu agreed to go. Heesun originally wanted to wait in Yanxi's room, but turned around and realized that Yanxi couldn't help but make wisecracks when he came back empty-handed. He didn't go away. He just stood there. In less than 5 minutes, Qingqiu came running towards him, and Heesun saw that her hands were empty. He said, what's the matter? Didn't she let you take it? Qingqiu said, no, my young mistress didn't let me go. When she said this, she pouted and said, because of this thing about you, I was tortured. You are scolding me. Heesun said, oh, you can't bear to worry about anything. Why do you want to tell her about it? I won't bother you. Heesun said. Sun had no choice but to bite the bullet and go back to his room. It happened that Li Ma was sweeping the floor under the eaves of the veranda. She saw Heesun and was about to speak. Heesun smiled and waved her hands, and pointed to the room. Li Ma understood, threw the broom, walked down the steps and came forward. Yin smiled softly and asked, why did the second master run out in the middle of the night last night, and where did he sleep all night? Heesun said, I fell asleep at the seventh master's place. Is she up? Li's mother said. He said, no, I'm asleep. Heesun said, go in and get my hat and mandarin jacket. Li Ma smiled and said, are you angry again? You can go there by yourself. Heesun looked at her, even more so. I thought to myself, it's better to ask for help from others than to ask for help from yourself, so I'll do it myself. So he walked gently into the room, took out the clothes and hats, and brought the toothbrush and tooth powder. Just as he was about to leave the room, Huiqing turned over and sat up, and sneered, is this enough for you? Open up and take more, so as not to come here again when you want something. What are you doing in such a sneaky way? Who is stopping you from taking it? Heesun felt a little embarrassed to leave after hearing this. Then he sent everything in completely again. Yin said, I'm letting you. Isn't that okay? If you think I'm not giving in, well, I won't let it. So he asked Ma Li to get some wash water and started washing his face on the Huiqing basin rack. Huiqing said, this place is not a place for you to wash your face. You can go wherever you like. Heesun smiled and said, you seem to be taking over the host. Don't even ask me where this place is. What about Jin? How about Cheng? If you say that I am the guest, then I will be the guest. What do you think? Snatched the handkerchief from Heesun's hand. I don't want you to wash it. What do you think? Heesun said with a smile. Come on, who is doing this with you? I've been waiting for a long time, just give it to me. Huiqing said, there is no shame. Who is making trouble and laughing with you? Hisun gave in a little more, but when he saw Huiqing still pushing him, he couldn't help but feel angry, and said, okay, I'll let you. Can't I find a face washer? Where? As he said this, he put on his Mandarin jacket and hat and walked out. Huiqing said, what are you afraid of? You can just imitate the big brother and hide away. That's good. It will be clear in front of you. After hearing this, Hisun became more and more angry, thinking, woman, if she has some talent, she will inevitably use it to respect herself and threaten her husband. But there are so many talented and lustful women in the world. Am I really threatened by you? I won't come back. What do you do? When I arrived at the yamen, I looked at the clock hanging on the heavy door in front of me. It was still 9:30. The yamen was still quiet. There didn't seem to be many people going to the yamen. We walked all the way to the counselor's room, separated by a curtain, and didn't know who was inside, so we slowed down a little. When he walked to the door curtain, he grabbed a waiter and held up the curtain with his hands to let Hisun in. Hisun looked at the room and saw no one there. On the other hand, the pens and ink were neatly arranged on each desk, and the desks were bare without any dust. On a larger table in the middle, there was a teapot and several sets of cups and saucers. Several folded daily newspapers were placed in a row. His son was a walker, and there was no desk for him in the office, so he took off his hat, hung it on the hanger, and sat down at the big desk first. The waiter took a hand towel and handed it to him. He wiped it casually, threw it to the waiter's hand, took a newspaper in front of him, looked at it, and asked the waiter, no one is here today. Are you coming? The waiter said, with a smile, it's early. Counselor Zhao won't be here until 11 o'clock. His son said, where is the other person? The waiter said, there is someone else who is later than Counselor Zhao. You can't come every day. Only a few counselors are like this. You, he said with a smile. Don't come if you are busy. Everyone is like this. His son flipped through the newspaper and the waiter came over. A cup of tea came, and I took another sip. I felt very bored, so I stood up and said, I won't wait for them anymore. Let's go. After saying that, he took his hat, put it on, and walked out of the salt service department. He came by car this time. He came out of the yamen and got into the car again. He wanted to go to a small restaurant to meet friends for dinner. He reached into his bag and found that he was in a hurry and didn't bring any money with him. The money is all in the box, so I have to go back and take a trip, especially since I have a check for 400 yuan, signed and stamped, so I just need to go to the bank to cash it. This will fall into the hands of Huiqing, and there is no chance of getting any money back. She didn't know about this amount of money, so it was better to go back as soon as possible and get the money in hand. Thinking this way, he asked the driver to drive back. After arriving home, he pretended that nothing happened and walked back to the yard as usual. I saw Huiqing holding a pair of dumbbells in the corridor, lifting them up and down. She wore a short-sleeved gown, and her skirt was tied high, exposing her thighs. Then he laughed and said, where did such an older elementary school student come from our house? Huiqing continued to fuck her, pretending not to hear. Hisun didn't say anything when he saw her, and walked to the house with a smile. As he walked, he unbuttoned his mantle, indicating that he was back to rest. He walked into the house, took off his mantle, poured a cup of tea, and sat on the sofa to drink it. At this time, I only heard 2 dumbbells rolling on the floor in the room outside, and then the door curtain rolled up and Huiqing walked in. Hisun put down the teacup on the coffee table, smiled quickly and said with a fist in his arms, I'm sorry, it's all my fault. Let's make peace. Huiqing originally had a stern face, but seeing him like this, his face became a little stern. Can't get up. Then, Hisun filled the teacup with tea, held it in both hands, and gave it to Huiqing, and said, okay, this is my apology, but you can't throw the teacup. Huiqing said, with a puffed face, that's right. If you want to throw it, you dare to hand it over. What do you dare to do to me? His son smiled and said, what can I do? But this cup is your favorite thing, or is it a souvenir of our wedding? Look at this cup. Just have a sip of tea. Otherwise, I really can't let go of my face. Huiqing said, what more face do you want? You don't want to beg for mercy in front of me. He chuckled and took the teacup. Hisun smiled and said, because I love you, I am afraid of you. But you don't love me, because you are not afraid of me. Hu Jing smiled and said, "Don't talk nonsense. Are you back today to accomplice me? You are? I came back for that check, right? Sorry, I used it." After saying that, he tilted his neck and drank the cup of tea. Just as he was about to put the cup on the table, Hesun stretched out his hand, took the cup, and said with a smile, "Do you want another cup?" Hu Jing said with a smile, "Don't you want the check?" Hesun said with a smile, "It's a box holder. Is that the check I gave you to keep? Don't accuse me of being a good person. I'm really here to save you. I thought, of course, it was my fault for running out in the middle of the night, so I came back to make peace with you. If you don't believe it, just spend the check." Hui Chang said with a smile, "I'm a soft-hearted person. I know you're lying, but it sounds good, so I'll let it go. Who's spending your money? I have plenty, take it." As he said that, he took out the check from his pocket and threw it to the ground. Hesun bent down and picked it up. It was indeed the check he wanted, and he quickly folded the bill. Hui Chang snorted with a smile and said, "What do I say?" Hesun smiled and said, "That's difficult. Think about it. If you throw it on the ground and I don't pick it up, what crime should I be guilty of? Now I'm listening to your orders. You say what this check should be like, and I'll do it, so that I won't do it wrong again." Hui Chang smiled and said, "Spend it. As long as you are serious and don't do anything wrong, you can spend the money you earn, and I won't interfere." Hesun took this opportunity to put the check in his pocket, bowed to her, and smiled softly. "I offended you last night. I will pay you back tonight." Hui Chang said, "You are just like that. You broke Lao Qi's teacup today. Do you know that it is someone's favorite thing? After lunch, you can give this cup to him." His son was worried about not being able to get away, so he agreed. After lunch, he brought the blue and white fine porcelain cup and sent it to Yanxi's room. But Yanxi was very busy today and was not at home. It turned out that the porcelain cup that Hesun had broken early in the morning was Yanxi's favorite. It didn't matter that he smiled and left, but Yanxi was very upset and sighed. "How did this come about? I have such a bad luck in it. This is the most precious thing of the imperial kiln, porcelain. I have 4 in total, 2 of which I gave away, 2 of which I kept for myself, and now there is only 1 left." Jin Rong was standing nearby, so he bent down and picked it up, smiling. "Fortunately, only 2 halves are broken. Let the bull saw come and saw off a few nails, and it can still be used." Yanxi said, "What do you know? This kind of thing should have no marks at all to be good. How ugly would it be if such a pure and elegant color was sawed with a lot of nails? You said it's good, so you can take it." Jin Rong still stood there, still smiling. Yanxi said, "Second master has been making a fuss since early this morning. You go ahead. I still need to sleep." Jin Rong smiled and said, "You have forgotten one thing. Isn't it time to do it?" Yanxi said, "What is it?" Jin Rong said, "The day after tomorrow is Mid-Autumn Festival." Yanxi said, "Mid-Autumn Festival is Mid-Autumn Festival. What does it have to do with me?" Jin Rong said, "The gift-giving has been very lively these 2 days. You." These words reminded Yanxi. He smiled and said, "I really forgot. See if Dehai is at home? Let him drive the car, and I'll go to Chengmi silk shop." Jin Rong said, "No one goes to buy silk so early in the morning. It's better to go in the afternoon." Yanxi said, "What's the matter? Doesn't the silk shop welcome customers in the morning?" Jin Rong said, "It's not that they don't welcome customers. There is not much business in the silk shop in the morning. It's cold and boring. In the afternoon, it's better. All the ladies and young wives go there. Not to mention buying things. It's also very interesting to watch the fun." Yanxi smiled and said, "Nonsense. I don't care about you. You are getting more and more outrageous. You often make fun of me. How dare you talk to the eldest and second masters like this?" Jin Rong laughed and said, "Who made the 7th master younger than me? When you were a child, you were used to being served by servants. So now you are not afraid of anyone." Yanxi said, "Stop talking nonsense. Tell him to drive the car." Jin Rong said, "I am not saying too much. You are so impatient when doing things. You went out in the car so early and made a lot of noise. Who knows? Who in the upper room knows about it? We have to ask about it. Once it comes out, it will be a matter of right and wrong. After lunch, you can go anywhere you want, and no one will pay attention to you. Now you run out to scare the snake out of the grass. You can't say that. There is nothing wrong. Isn't this making trouble for yourself?" Yanxi thought about it and felt that what he said was right. He smiled and said, I will do as you say, and go in the afternoon. Now that you have said this, I don't want to sleep anymore. Bring me today's newspapers. After hearing this, Jin Rong brought all the daily newspapers of the day, but there were 2 tabloids on the newspapers. Yanxi lay on the sofa, and Jin Rong put a stack of newspapers on the tea table beside the sofa. Yanxi first picked up 2 tabloids and looked at the drama newspaper without reading anything else. There were several theaters, and today's dramas were all good, and he couldn't help wanting to go to the theater. But if he wanted to go to the theater, he had to go shopping earlier. Just as he was thinking about it, the door was pushed open, and Yufin came in with half of her head sticking out. Yanxi saw him and sat up quickly, laughing. Oh, how come the 3rd sister-in-law is here so early? Yufin then held the door and walked in. She laughed. Isn't the 2nd brother here? Yanxi said. I don't know why. He slept on this sofa last night, and just left in a hurry. Is there anything to find him? Yufin said. I don't want to find him. I want to ask him why he is angry with the 2nd sister-in-law. I really want to be a mediator. While talking, she picked up the tabloid on the tea table and read it. He said, with a smile, Hey, today's play at the Republic stage is good. The well-dressed visiting the mother and returning the order. Isn't this young female role Chen Yufeng a big fan of yours? You have to invite me to the play today. Yanxi said with a smile. I obey orders from other places, but forget about this one at the Republic stage. Yufin said, Why forget about it? Don't we deserve to watch the actress you support? Yanxi said, That's not the case, because I'm really tired of watching visiting the mother and returning the order. Yufin said, Who told you to watch it? You can just listen to the play. You can get tired of watching it, but you can never get tired of listening to it. If you are tired of listening to it, why do you keep talking at home? Yanxi only said one sentence, but she refuted several reasons. In fact, what he meant was that whenever Chen Yufeng performed, Peng Zhen and his group of friends, a total of 7 or 8 people, always sat in the 2nd row in the pool. The 2nd row of chairs were fixed for them, and they didn't need to buy tickets. The seats were naturally reserved in the theater. Since there was a good play today, how could Peng Zhen not go? If the 2 parties meet, Yufin is a suspicious person. How could she not be suspicious? That's why he didn't want to go. Yufin had no idea of this reason, and said with a smile, You have to invite me. If you don't invite me, I will be angry with you. Yanxi pondered for a while and said, I will invite you. But, Yufin smiled. Don't say but there is no need to say it. Yanxi smiled. There is no need to say anything else, because after dinner, I have something serious to do, which may delay me for an hour or 2. If I come back late, 3rd sister-in-law can go first anyway. I will be there for sure. Yufin shook her head. The head said, Humph, you have nothing serious to do. If you don't make it clear, I won't suspect it. Once you make it clear, I will suspect that you want to escape. Yanxi smiled and said, I don't study, and I don't go to the government office. In theory, I don't have anything serious to do, but I always have friends. Can't meeting friends be considered a serious matter? Yufin said, Okay anyway, if you don't come, I will go anyway, and I will make the decision on your behalf and spend more money. After spending money, am I afraid that you won't admit it? Yanxi didn't say anything else, just smiled. But he was calculating in his heart how to inform Peng Zhen. If he didn't inform him, and the matter was exposed, wouldn't Peng Zhen suspect that he was making trouble? So he asked around to see where Peng Zhen was. But he searched everywhere, but didn't see any trace of Peng Zhen. He had to walk slowly to Peng Zhen's own yard. When he saw Qingqiu standing on the corridor hanging handkerchiefs, he exchanged a look with her. When Qingqiu looked up, she saw him standing in the moon gate. She understood what she meant and glanced at the room above. Then she looked at Yanxi and nodded, pouting slightly. Yanxi also understood what she meant, so he stood behind the screen of the moon gate. After a while, Qingqiu came and said with a smile, 7th Master, what's the matter? Do you want me to comb your hair? Yanxi said, No. Qingqiu said, Or do you want to wash your handkerchief? Yanxi said, No. Qingqiu looked down and saw that Yanxi's nails were very long. She smiled and said, Yes, you want me to trim your nails? Yanxi said, No, I came to tell your master. You should do him a favor. Qingqiu smiled and said, What's the matter? Are you here for our third master? Yanxi said, do you know where the third master has gone? When you see him, tell him privately that he must not go to the opera today. Just say that your young mistress asked me to invite her, and has booked a box. Qingqiu said, the third master went out early in the morning. I don't know if he will come back or not. Yanxi said, if he doesn't come back, forget it. If he comes back, tell him what I said. After Yanxi finished speaking, he went out. Qingqiu was very happy to hear this, thinking that she had done another small merit. Yufan was picking up boxes in the house, and Yanxi was talking to Qingqiu, but she really didn't know anything. It just happened that Pengzhen was busy outside for a while in the morning and just came back for lunch. Qingqiu had something in her heart, and she couldn't wait to tell Pengzhen. But Pengzhen sat in the house and didn't move. Qingqiu had something to say, but she had no way to say it. She just walked in and out of the house, and she was so anxious that her heart was burning. Pengzhen didn't understand, so he said, Qingqiu, did you lose something? Why are you always running in and out? Qingqiu was exposed by him, so she had to walk out and never come back. When the meal was served and the dishes were placed on the table, Yufan was not there. Qingqiu took the opportunity to stand in front of him and said softly, third master, seventh master said. As soon as she said the word said, Yufan coughed in the next room, and Qingqiu held back her words. At this time, Pengzhen realized that Qingqiu came and went this morning because of this sentence. After hearing this, he kept it in his mind. After dinner, he went to see Yanxi to see what he had to say. But Yanxi remembered to buy silk and satin, and had already taken the car. When Pengzhen was walking back, Qingqiu happened to catch up with him. Pengzhen asked, what did the seventh master say to you? Why didn't you finish? Qingqiu said, the seventh master said that he would invite the third young lady to the opera today, but please don't go. Pengzhen was stunned when he heard this. He asked, why? Qingqiu said, I don't know either. The seventh master told me so. Pengzhen thought carefully, and it must be about the Republic stage. But why did they want to listen to the opera? This was incomprehensible. When he walked back to his room, he couldn't help but ask Yufan, are you going to the opera? Yufan said, who told you that? Pengzhen said, old Seven told me. Yufan said, nonsense. Old Seven went out a long time ago. Pengzhen said, this is a very unimportant matter. Why should I talk nonsense? Old Seven went out. Couldn't he have left a message? Yufan said, he invited me to the opera. This is also a very normal thing. Why did he leave a message to tell you? Pengzhen couldn't explain it any further, so he had to smile at her. But at this time, Yanxi was upstairs in the silk shop, picking out silks. 2 or 3 shop assistants in long coats surrounded Yanxi and asked with a smile, seventh master, are you buying fabric for yourself? Or for some young lady? Yanxi said, I'm buying some things as gifts. An older shop assistant said, I want better fabrics for gifts. We have them. Then he said to the younger shop assistant, go, bring the newly arrived French silk. Yanxi said, don't take that. I'm giving it to the young ladies. The older shop assistant smiled and said, yes, I know. French silk is very good. If you like to pick something more lively, it should be Qian silk, right? Electric printed silk is also good. Well, that is a printed pattern which is best for making Qian Sam. Can you ask seventh master to bring it to you and have a look? I know that seventh master wants beautiful ones. Yanxi smiled and said, I only said one sentence, and you reported all these things. I was confused by what you said. Fortunately, the silk and satin are produced here, so you can call it whatever you want, even seamless heavenly clothing. What is Qian? Silk. This name sounds good. Bring it to me and have a look. But when he said this, the waiters were hugging left and right, and had piled up a lot of silk and satin on the glass cover. A young waiter took a piece of material, shook it out, and draped it over his shoulders like a monk's robe. He smiled and said, seventh master, take a look, it's Qian silk. Yanxi took a look and saw that it was an apricot yellow base with red flowers printed all over it. Yanxi shook his head and said, too lively. The old man said, seventh master, look, this is good. When Yanxi looked, he saw that he was holding a piece of blue silk in his hand. The upper half was pure blue without any pattern, but the color became lighter and lighter, and at the bottom, it became a tender willow color. There was a bunch of 5 color patterns there, just like embroidery. The old man with a beard hung the silk close to his chest. The bunch of flowers dragged to his knees. He walked slowly, deliberately swinging the silk with the bunch of flowers below. He smiled at Yanxi with his beard raised. "Seventh master, look, how beautiful. This is going to be made into a qiangsam. From a distance, it looks like a short coat and long skirt, and from a close distance, it is a long gown. It's really beautiful." Yanxi couldn't help laughing when he saw the old man wearing this. Now the old man walked, still pretending to move his lotus steps lightly, and Yanxi couldn't help laughing. It happened that there were two concubine-like female guests on a glass cover next door, cutting fabric. When they saw the old man doing something weird, they laughed so hard that they fell backwards and covered their faces with handkerchiefs. The old man tried his best to please him, but he got a nose full of dust, and his face turned purple with shame. Yanxi was afraid that he would be too embarrassed, so he smiled and said, "This fabric is very good. You can cut me a piece according to the size of the clothes." The old man covered up the matter by cutting fabric. He also picked out many fabrics of different colors and asked Yanxi to choose, saying that gifts should always come in pairs. Yanxi said, "What's the difference between cutting fabrics in pairs? You just want to sell more." The old man smiled and said, "Seventh master, you shouldn't say that. If you meet a customer like you, where else can you do more business? Even if you, seventh master, give gifts, you can never give one or two." As they were talking here, the smiling female guest kept looking over here. Seeing that someone was looking at him, Yanxi wanted to save face, so he smiled and said, "Of course I can't give one, but I'm afraid the recipient may not be willing to give me these fabrics." The old clerk said, "That's easy to do. Just buy more. If you give him several, there will always be one or two that he likes." Yanxi said, "I don't want these electronically printed ones. I want some casual ones." After hearing this, the clerks moved a lot of fabrics and placed them in front of Yanxi like a gust of wind. The female guests paid more attention to it and whispered to each other as if they were talking about something. Yanxi saw that this situation was a good opportunity, so he cut whatever the clerk said was good. In a short time, he cut 8 or 9 kinds. When the clerk wanted to show Yanxi the fabric, the clock on the wall had already reached 1 o'clock. So he said, "Come on, I don't have time. You can carry it to the car for me." The clerk wrapped the fabric and wrote the bill. Yanxi didn't even look at it and put it in his bag. He said, "Write it down. If you want cash, you can come to my house this afternoon to get it." The old man said, "Write it down. It's not easy for Master Qi to be at home." Yanxi took the silk materials and took the car to Luohuahutong. He first gave Jin Rong more than 10 yuan to buy fruit, mooncakes and the like. At this time, he combined the silk materials and asked Jin Rong to carry them to the Leng family. To him, it was another proud article. Hesun was so cruel that when he arrived at Yanxi's place, he washed his face indiscriminately and only wiped his teeth with a handkerchief without using any tooth powder. When Yanxi saw it, he smiled and said, "I'm so angry. What's the reason for this?" Hesun didn't say anything, poured a cup of hot tea, and drank it standing on the ground. While drinking, he blew. Yanxi smiled and said, "I think the second brother is waiting to leave like this. What's the rush? Why are you busy like this?" Hesun remained silent, finished the cup of tea, put down the cup and left. However, it was not placed firmly, and there was a sound around the cuffs. Hesun turned around, smiled at Yanxi, and walked out. I thought to myself that the 300 yuans a month from the salt service department was definitely reliable, but in order not to go to the West City, I rarely went to the Yamen once a month. After all, I couldn't justify it in my conscience. Moreover, I am a counselor walking on the road. I don't need to participate in the affairs, so that's it. It doesn't make sense that I don't even need to walk. While you're leaving early today, why not go and have a chat? Thinking this way, after going out, I went straight to the salt service department. Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.